So Cecil, I just heard about this awesome European festival.
Yeah.
There's going to be music. There's going to be psychedelics. Do you have any interest in going?
Yeah, man. What's it called?
Midsommar.
Oh, hell no. Bienvenidos, Fright fans. Welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I love it. I'm Jaime Fuego.
What's up, guys? Welcome. We are here to do a non-spoiler review of the brand new Ari Aster effort by the name of Midsommar, whatever you want to pronounce it as. This is his sophomore effort, following up his effort with Hereditary, which was that last year?
I believe so.
How? I mean, geez, year after year, this guy is able to go.
That was earlier in the year. And
did he write and direct this one?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Just like with that one.
Proper credit.
Indeed.
So let's talk about this one, Fuego. Now, we'll do this review like we do our normal reviews, which is we'll talk about the overall thoughts, and we'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, the music, the cinematography, absolutely. And we'll do all of that stuff in a non-spoilerific way, and then we'll record a separate, probably shorter spoiler review. And there's a reason for that, which we're going to get into. But the first thing I want to say is I want to announce that right now, Fuego, I'm going to predict what the top 3 negative comments are going to be from this review. Number one, the comment is going to be, well, you guys just didn't understand it.
I think I did.
The next comment is going to be, well, you guys just don't know crap.
That too, maybe.
The third thing that we're going to get is, you guys just aren't real horror fans. And how do I know that these are going to be the comments? Because those are the comments that we got when the majority of the show didn't like the movie The Witch. The Witch.
I still love The Witch.
I know, you're the only one, so you didn't get the hate comments. The rest of us got all of those, and unfortunately, I think we're going to have a repeat of those sorts of comments because we weren't that on board after our trailer reactions for this movie.
We were both coming in very skeptical of this movie, and I think with good reason, because it looked great, but we were really wondering what else it was going to bring.
Visually. Didn't look great. Didn't look great story-wise. And we mentioned that. We mentioned that it didn't grab us, but that we were going to be willing to give it a try because it is Ari Aster. Unfortunately, the trailer was a great indication of the movie because this movie just did not end up being that interesting to me. Yeah. I felt, and I'll be honest, this is a 2-hour and 20-minute movie, which easily could have lost 20 minutes, easily. But I will say that for the first hour to almost an hour and a half, I was in. I was on board. Even though it was a 2-hour and 20-minute movie, I never fell asleep, which has been a problem with me recently because I do a lot of stuff. I work long hours. I stay up late. Sometimes in the theater, I get a little tired. Not an issue with this because I was keyed in. I was drawn to it. But it also kind of felt like, giving it an overall sort of opinion here, it felt like to me, like the first hour and 15 minutes was written by one person. And then they like, here, give me a hand up. Give me a hand up. So say they were like, tag in, you're up. And then they just had someone else come in and handle the back half of the movie, which was way crazier, way less coherent, and just didn't deliver on the things that they had set up and that I was hoping they would deliver on. I mean, yes, they delivered on some things that they set up, but not the interesting things.
Not in a satisfying way.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was unfortunately, this movie just didn't deliver on what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I was pretty underwhelmed, man. And I must admit that I feel like our presumptions proved very correct about this movie. I guess
they laid it out very apparently in the trailer what was going to happen.
It was pretty predictable in my estimation. And as somebody who is a big fan of these culty type movies, I know you're not, but I am.
Culty type movies in the vein of Wicker Man.
I love the original Wicker Man.
The Sacrament.
I like The Sacrament. I like the
things like that where there's minimal technology. It's off the grid. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's a cult aspect. Yes, it's definitely one of those.
It was a bright, beautiful looking movie and
gorgeously shot.
Fantastically
We'll get to that.
Some of the camera angles and everything, and some of the spins of stuff. I mean, it was gorgeous looking. Some of the I don't know, visual nuances that are thrown in there were great. But honestly, to surmise it, It was incredibly predictable, and I didn't like any of the characters in this movie. And when you don't really relate or care much about the characters, you're not going to get that invested.
I like the main girl, but everyone else.
I didn't even like her either.
Really? I thought her
one...
acting was phenomenal, except they had her walk away crying one too many times.
Way too many times.
One too many times.
She's just like this little, like, kind of trolly thing, and I don't know, man.
She's very pear-shaped for a Hollywood girl,
she was really short, dude.
Very short.
Really short.
But I was digging her. Like, I like that kind of girl, so I was on board for her. But they did. I don't think she overdid it. I thought she was a great actress, but I thought the material she was given was walk away crying, walk away crying, walk away crying,
sob
so many times,
and you know what?
Hysterically sob.
Hysterically sobbing. You know what? We saw hysterical sobbing and just horrible sadness
in Hereditary
from Toni Collette in Hereditary, and yet. It was just much more.
I was ready for more of it.
I really, really invested in those. Like, I mean, Wolf and Colette and, you know, Gabriel Byrne. I mean, that was a cast that I genuinely empathized and sympathized with them. None of the characters in this did I ever really feel that.
No, so, well, I will say that I felt that a bit. No, that's fair. That's fair. I can understand that. I felt that I was a bit more invested in at least the main couple that is featured in the trailer, and you see the dynamic set up in the trailer. It's the exact dynamic, but all of the dude's friends are just as puddle deep as they seem to be in the trailer,
so
unfortunately.
Caricature, absolutely. And honestly, I could not stand his character. You're not
his character.
You're supposed to hate his character, though. That's the way he's written. But
I guess
he was
no, I don't think he was. No, I don't think you are supposed to hate him.
Dude.
No, I disagree. I don't think you are supposed to hate that character.
Oh, well, maybe
that's a flaw in the film. No, it's you just hated him. Well, I don't think we ever actually got into the story. I think we've kind of transitioned into a bit of the acting and stuff. So let's rewind a little bit and let's go into the story.
Although there's certain things we can't necessarily spoil.
Right, we can't spoil, but these are things that were revealed in the trailer. There is a man on the verge of breaking up with a girl that he's been with for a long time, but he's been, debating about breaking up with her for, almost a year now, his friends let us know.
Talking with his friends about it.
And then something very tragic happens with her.
She loses someone in her life. They
loses,
yeah. Well,
they show it in the
very
trailer, traumatic event, yeah. Very traumatic event.
She has a traumatic loss.
And so she basically leans on him in order to kind of get through it, and they end up together for yet another 6 months because it all happens during the snow, during the winter, and so...
Which I actually really like those opening shots, too.
I did, too.
Really
well, the cinematography is not in question here. It's the story and the evolution of the characters and stuff like that. So, anyway, they basically... She finds out that her boyfriend is planning to go on this trip to Sweden to this Midsommar festival, and she ends up kind of inviting herself along. The boyfriend feels guilty, so invites her along, and so they all go.
That scene with the friends was pretty funny, though, I gotta say, where they're just like,
it was okay, yeah. The dude's basically like, all right, so it was your guys' idea. All right, hey, honey, how's it going?
The reaction on Will Poulter's face was pretty funny, I gotta say. He was so over the top.
He was, and not effectively used, I don't think.
No, I didn't think so either.
So anyway, they go to this Midsommar festival, and at first it seems really interesting, and one of the dudes is there doing his thesis, and then another guy decides to do his thesis in the area too, because there's a lot of interesting things going on. And one of the first ceremonies that they're taken to, something kind of sinister happens, and they realize that, this might not be everything that we were led to believe it was, and then things start to spiral further and further and further and further out of control at that point, without spoiling anything.
That just justify, they're like, it's a cultural thing, and we need to just try to accept and observe and just soak it all in, so to speak. And that's really all that we can really, we can't... There's so much that we could spoil that we don't necessarily
No, we're not going to, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't know, story-wise, I found it, once again, as I mentioned, I found it predictable, since I have said, especially the third act, once it really started revving, once we see what the cult of sorts is really all about. You can probably even guess just based on the trailers.
You can surmise based on what you see in the trailer that there is something sinister afoot, and but maybe not as much as you think, but it's interesting at least.
And that's another thing, though, is where I don't feel like they really went for it as much as I wanted them to either. You know,
That's fair.
yeah. I was expecting it to be maybe a little more grisly, a little more, whatever. But it just, I don't know. I feel like the specific people who have stuff happen to them, they have certain, I guess infractions or just like sins that they perpetuate, and they piss the people off there, and that's where things just kind of go down that particular route. But then there's like the pseudo love interest type things going down with other characters without really getting into things, and then there's still Danny and her character trying to resolve so much. I mean, I can credit Ari for the fact that he was so much emphasizing just the cyclical aspect of death and rebirth, and it's a really constant theme throughout the film. From her just with the tragedy that she endures, and then trying to just rejuvenate herself and get past it and everything. But
it's so clumsily handled. I felt
very
though.
much so, though. It really truly is, and I appreciate the themes that they were trying to purport, but it just, I don't know, it didn't coalesce, and it didn't just really all cohesively fit together the way that I think it could have. It was just very shoddily put together theme-wise. I mean, but as far as from a visual standpoint, which we'll eventually get to, yeah, it's a great looking movie.
So her and her friends have to try and figure out what the hell's going on, and try and eventually figure out a way out of there if they can. So that is the long and short of the movie. So it's yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it presents itself to be in the trailer, and I was just hoping it would be more like Hereditary, where Hereditary's trailers were still pretty enigmatic, but when you sat down and watched it, it was a relatively clear-cut story with some things that might have been a little confusing, but you still understood everything at the end. This one felt much more haphazardly kind of thrown together, and I don't know if that's because he only had like a year, maybe a year and a half to get it done, and it just didn't coalesce like Hereditary did, because that's the problem that I felt. It just didn't. And getting into the acting, I didn't like the acting of a lot of the people. I thought that, what is his name? Poltz?
Will Poulter.
Poulter.
He was originally going to be Pennywise when Cary Fukunaga was working on the reboot, and then they shifted gears, and I think rightfully so. Honestly,
yeah, this dude, he didn't do it for me in this movie, and not many of the characters really did. I liked the main girl, but everyone else just felt like they were just playing their role, and all the cult members just kind of felt like they were playing standard cult member roles, and no one really stood out in any measure, unfortunately.
No, they were very dreamy-eyed and one-note, and kind of just, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of like both character and story, I guess. No character or story beat surprised me in this, like in Hereditary.
Correct.
Hereditary legit surprised me in a few spots.
That's not to say there's no surprise violence, because there is surprise violence, but it wasn't even surprise because I knew it was coming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a beat early in Hereditary that's a big surprise, and there's some stuff in the third act that's a big surprise. This movie just did not bring that to the table in performance or in scripting, and so, I mean, is there much else to mention, at least on those two fronts?
There's really not. So let's get into the effects now.
Because we're not trying to beat this film to pieces, because
no, there's not. I mean, it might be worth your time to go check out if you like these kinds of movies, but unfortunately, I don't think it's worth spending the money on a full theatrical non-matinee price.
I do like these kinds of movies, and I was still disappointed.
Yeah, it's A24, so that's very divisive to begin with. Yeah. But yeah, so let's talk about the effects, because there's both practical effects and there's definitely CG throughout the movie. Yeah. Now, the CG is more of the CG being used to enhance things, but there is a lot of things going on with scenery. There's a lot of things going on with set design, set dress. The set design and set dress is beautiful. Love that stuff.
God, was it beautiful, man.
The set design and set dress is another category in and of itself, and we'll hit on it real quick. That was gorgeous. That was super well done, and it felt like an actual place that, people would go to. You might not want to go there, but yeah, that stuff was phenomenal.
Yeah, the layout of the community, the structures that they had, and especially the interiors, where there's a few scenes where some of our characters go into these rooms that are just completely adorned, top to bottom, with drawings and weird, like, I don't know, just like strange
historical stuff and runes and things like that.
Yeah, beautifully pieced together. And then, the one thing that I will definitely say is a disappointment is the fact that there is a particular character with makeup, prosthetic stuff going on that is heavily featured
in promo
material
and is in all of maybe 30 seconds of the movie. 30 seconds total.
But yeah,
that's totally surprising how that went down.
Yeah, big time. And
but let's talk about the music and the sound design. Okay, because one of the things I have to talk about, before we get into the music, let's talk about the sound design.
The strange chanting stuff?
No, not just the strange chanting. The sound design in this movie I felt was poor. Because there were times that there are characters, like there's things happening in one area of the outdoors, and there's a particular sound that it has, and then there's characters literally just 10, 20 feet away, but the sound changes so dramatically between those two shots that it doesn't make sense. There's also very, very obvious, I don't know if you want to call it bad, I would call it bad, but very, very obvious ADR. There are shots where there are people walking 20 feet away from the camera with their backs to the camera, walking off screen in a different direction, delivering lines like they're right in front of the camera with a lavalier microphone.
Which was the one thing that
stuck out tremendously to me.
I loved a lot of the shot selection in that aspect, but yeah, they did a lot of these really far away shots
where it sounds like you're right there, and it's like you can't. Yeah. It's messing with the audience. It's noticeable. It's noticeable, and you don't want it to be noticeable.
I mean, I thought it looked cool, and there was some very interesting and varied.
We'll get to the cinematography because that stuff's beautiful,
but no, that
the sound design is really it's inconsistent and incoherent. Yeah, you're right, no, I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a problem. The music, though, was interesting.
It was. It gave it a very distinctive flavor, that's for sure. You know, it just, I don't know, called almost like tribal, Swedish chanting and stuff like that. But also just some of the weird,
it did feel sort of Native American at times.
At times, but just some of the weird noises that, in these ritualistic sessions, some of them would make like that, and stuff like that. Yeah, it was, but it was, I think it was supposed to be creepy, and it didn't come off as such to me.
That was a big problem in this movie. Without spoiling, there were a lot of moments that were supposed to be thrilling and or freaky and or confusing, and it just came off laughable
or disorienting.
Literally, the audience was laughing at times in this movie that
one scene in particular.
I know the filmmaker didn't want them to be laughing at this time, but they were literally laughing. No, it was numerous times because this scene was spread out. And it's not what the filmmaker must have been going for, because it was bringing me out of the movie every time. I'm like, this is silly. Yeah, this is just silly what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah, and guys, this was not like a general audience. This was a small theater.
Small press screening.
All press only.
All press.
And so when half the room of press people are laughing.
Maybe like 100 people, just all laughing at this. Not good. Not good.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be an intense moment. Absolutely supposed to be an intense moment.
I couldn't help it. I mean, I was one of those guys.
It's almost on the level, without spoiling, it's almost on the level of like someone just randomly, one of the characters busting out laughing in the treehouse end scene of Hereditary. It's like, it's that serious of a scene, and it's like one of the characters just starts busting out laughing, and you're like, what the hell? That's so out of place. And it felt that way. It really did.
This scene was more poorly executed.
It was. And again, something like you said in the marketing materials that was leaned on heavily was like barely an afterthought in this movie and was never even explained. Except it was barely. They talked about it briefly towards sort of the first third of the movie, but they never even made the connection that that was the exact person that they were talking about, because that person was in shadows at the time. Anyway, guys, this is a bummer because I wanted to like this movie. I really liked Ari Aster's Hereditary big time, but this, man alive, this, I'm just glad I'm not alone. I'm glad that I'm not, that you agree, because this was a bit of a mess. I did. I was a little bit worried that you were going to be like on the A24D.
No, and I often am, and I love A24 stuff.
A24 can do really good stuff.
Whether it's,
but A24 also did In Fabric, which is coming out soon, and we had the same problem. The back half of In Fabric was a repeat of the first half, and it's like, why? Yeah. So I didn't understand choices made in the back half of this movie.
Well, what is Ari Aster going to do for his third movie?
I don't know.
What I'm officially wondering at this particular point.
I mean, I wouldn't call this a sophomore slump, and again, I acknowledge that there's going to be a lot of people that are like, they love this movie, and they're just going to tell us that we just didn't get it. We didn't understand. There's the
No.
symbolism of this, the symbolism of that.
And there
We didn't
was a
pick
ma-
up on this. We didn't pick up on
there
that.
was a
Blah, blah,
mad
blah.
amount of
It
that.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I should be able to enjoy the movie my first time around.
It doesn't matter.
Why do I need to do research going into a movie? Why do I need to see a movie multiple times to really get it? No, I should be able to enjoy a movie the first time around, at least on some level. Visually, it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Cinematography in this movie was fantastic.
Just some of the stuff that we didn't even touch upon as much as I wanted to. There's so many people tripping on drugs in this movie.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of background waviness going on. I do not recommend... Fuego would recommend it. I would not recommend seeing this while on mushrooms.
You see, the thing is, I thought it was so funny where, like, they're like, hey, just have the tea instead. It's like, no, the tea is twice as potent, and, you know, the trip may last half the time, but my God. The way they
didn't know that.
The way they did the waving, hey, grown in the ground. That's all I stick to. But no, the way that they did the waviness in the background and like the little vines growing on her feet. I mean, there were some really cool visual touches.
But
in
it
this
didn't
movie,
follow through and like come
No.
back in any sort of meaningful way towards the end.
It didn't, and I mean. Yeah, the predictable. Hey, it's just going to be.
It was predictable. It's such a bummer. Like you mentioned that earlier, but it was a predictable movie.
Up to the finale, like this movie did nothing that I was not
expecting.
Yeah, exactly. There was there was like donuts for surprise factor. Unfortunately, aside from the fact, and actually no, because. I assumed Ari Aster, like going back to that very first shot in Hereditary where you zoom in on the miniature, I knew that he was going to maintain that consistency of making a beautiful looking movie. That was well shot, well framed, very I mean, some of the camera spins that he does.
There was
one
or two disorienting things, but
yes. And deliberately, obviously. But as a whole, the storytelling was really lacking in this particular film, despite the fact that he maintained the consistency visually. So I'm going to leave it at that, at least for me.
So that's what we're going to call the non-spoiler review. We're going to come back. We're going to do a probably truncated version of a spoiler review. We're not going to go through the whole movie beginning to end. We're going to hit the spoilers
that's
because,
what we often do.
Honestly, guys, we're just not excited to talk about this movie in depth because it's just a bit of a bummer.
Talk crap.
No, we're not. We're not. It's just
here to critique and give our honest
This is
thoughts.
our honest thoughts literally right after seeing the movie. You know, some people will be like, well, you need to see it 2 or 3 more times before you can give your actual opinion. It's like, no, that should not be the case. I should be able to enjoy it the first time around.
And also when the rep is giving like kind of a preamble preface about this is one that you might need to take time to let sink in.
Yeah, they're like, if you need to think about it, let us know and we'll email you for your thoughts later.
Yeah,
it's like
we won't demand them from you as you're leaving the theater.
Oh no, I have thoughts immediately after this, for sure. So, all right, guys, we're gonna call our non-spoiler review of Midsommar there. It's child's play situation for me where I really wanted to like it, but and again, the first hour and a half was interesting, but then it just goes way off the rails for the last hour.
I won't say it's bad, but it was very disappointing.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
That's what I'll leave.
Why don't you guys let us know with your comments down below what you think of this. Are you wanting to see it? If you did see it, what are your non-spoiler thoughts down there? Again, we'll be putting up a spoiler review. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button. I know we'll get a lot less likes because we didn't like the video and all that stuff. But
we're sorry.
We appreciate it. If you want to see more reviews like this, go ahead and subscribe. Our review for Annabelle Comes Home is already available. And Child's Play as well, so constant content, and if you want to know our thoughts on every new movie, it's there right now. So thank you guys very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias up and Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared!